Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert.
Right.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello, Elena Jasper. I couldn't be more excited to learn today, so thank you for your generosity in advance.
Oh, wow. What a great way to kick us off.
Feeling very polite today.
Oh, great. Well, you might have to drop that because this is a pretty funny one. So you might need to get a little bit more silly here. But we're back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week, I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob and, of course, for all of you. Rob, are you ready to nerd out?
Yes, please.
All right, let's get into it. As always, I'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read Meaningful Brands from Meaningless Differentiation: The Dependence on Irrelevant Attributes. This is by Gregory S. Carpenter from Northwestern University, Rashi Glazer from the University of California, Berkeley, and Kent Nakamoto from Virginia Tech. This was published all the way back in August of 1994, so it's not a recent study, but from what I can find, it's really a classic. But before we get into it, Rob, how important do you think differentiation is in marketing?
Gosh, I would think it's very important. I mean, I'm not sure why you would do marketing if you're not differentiating yourself. It's obviously marketing's designed to drive sales, job one, and differentiation, job two. But at the same time, you could say what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Can you drive sales if you're not differentiated?
I think that there's some debate online about like differentiation versus distinctiveness, right? That's kind of like a Ehrenberg-Bass debate. Is it enough just to be distinct? Like to look different from your competitors, to be easy to remember? Or do you really need something in your core that makes you differentiated? And this study might have a bit of that answer. They kind of ask themselves the same question. Conventional product differentiation strategies emphasize the importance of distinguishing your brand from competitors on the basis of an attribute that is relevant, meaningful, and valuable to customers. And a lot of brands do this, but some marketers, some of us, don't really have a clear kind of valuable difference to work with. So instead, we have to differentiate on something that might appear to create a meaningful difference, but in reality, it's irrelevant to creating a benefit. And these researchers call that meaningless differentiation. And they wondered how the positive impacts of this sort of differentiation would differ from true value-creating differentiation. So, Rob, can you think of a brand you like that has meaningless differentiation?
Well, I guess I'm a fan of Charmin. It's one of the better toilet papers out there, but I can't actually tell you why it's better than another brand. Toilet paper tends to be kind of a commodity. I can't tell you why it's better, but I do like it. So therefore, I guess it has meaningless differentiation in my mind. Would that be accurate?
I think it would depend on whether it actually is different. Is it actually like stronger toilet paper? Then it would be more meaningful. But if it's something like, one thing I was looking up this study and trying to think about, like, okay, what are some well-known brands where their differentiation is sort of meaningless? And some like fashion brands came up where you're differentiated by the logo, but maybe like the material is the same as other brands. Or you think about some of those crowded D2C categories where they all start to seem the same. And well, you know what? Actually, we're going to get into it.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, instead of me trying to like fumble around here, they actually, they helped me out with this. All right, so let's talk about meaningless differentiation. A lot of people actually do like brands that have this sort of not a real differentiation. This study found that consumers, we often value even irrelevant attributes. So this could lead to a preference for any brand that's differentiated, even if the differentiation provides no real benefits. And they proved this through a series of experiments. They used products like down jackets and instant coffee that were differentiated by attributes that don't offer any functional value. So for example, the coffee brand was differentiated by adding flaked crystals, which did not enhance the taste or quality of the coffee. The down jacket in the study was differentiated by an attribute called Alpine Class Fill, which was described as a unique but irrelevant feature. This feature was presented as a special type of down fill, but in reality, it provided no additional warmth or quality compared to regular down fill. Also, there are way more details in the study about how they ran these experiments and the many variables that they tested and controlled for. I'm giving a very summarized presentation here, as is the purpose of the show. So as always, please go read the study if you're interested in it. But let's talk about what they found. They found that any kind of meaningless differentiation can actually be valued by consumers under certain circumstances, especially when other information about true value is not clear. So, Rob, why do you think that meaningless differentiation still works?
Are we just hardwired to like things that have more features? Just by its very nature, whether we care about that feature or not, it just has more of them, which is why you see those comparison charts for like online services and they compare themselves versus all those other people in their category. And more check marks means more good.
Maybe we're trained that like more is better. I also wonder, when I first read this, I was like, maybe it's just because even if it's meaningless, it helps you remember it. It's so easy to see advertisements or walk by products and like you're just in a sea, even if it's not meaningful.
I've heard the story, and maybe this is an urban legend, that Michelob Golden Draft, they really built their campaign on cold filtered beer and communicated that over and over in their campaigns. And then it turns out like almost all beers are cold filtered. They just happen to be the ones that talked about it. So they kind of own the differentiation.
Okay, Rob, I have the best example. That just reminded me. You've told me about a campaign that you did once for a cereal where it was like a square cereal and you called it a diamond.
I did not do that campaign.
Oh, you didn't
yes,
do that.
No. That's a famous campaign.
Oh, okay. I thought you did that. That's so
No,
funny.
I wish I did. I think it was for Diamond Shreddies or something like that. And yes, they just literally made a joke out of the fact that they turned it from a square into a diamond and just by holding it differently.
That's a perfect example. And it worked, right? Wasn't it like a successful?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There we go. Well, we just talked about why we think that it might still work. Let's talk about what the researchers said. It could be that a unique attribute, regardless of how helpful it actually is, still makes a brand seem attractive or special. And advertisements can boost this effect since ads can describe an exclusivity or an innovation in impressive terms, even if it's superficial. And when a product is the only one in the market with that specific attribute, it can seem more salient to consumers and they'll attribute a higher value to it. These researchers also get into price. When a differentiated product is priced higher than others, it reinforces a perception of higher quality or uniqueness, even if the differentiation causing that high price is irrelevant. So that's one point for marketing. You can drive up the value of your product through marketing without making an actual improvement in product quality. It's not a huge surprise here. Our choices are often made with our hearts and then later justified with our heads. But one thing I love that they talked about is how this means more information doesn't always lead to better decisions. It's more about the context of information that shapes our preferences. So you could tell consumers everything about your product until you're blue in the face, but one meaningful or meaningless differentiation could make the sale. And I should mention that there's a whole ethical debate here about false advertising and the sustainability of promoting a product that isn't actually delivering on a true differentiated value. Like we've said before on the show, nothing kills a product faster than bad advertising. But let's turn to our Rob GPT to summarize this one. Adding seemingly irrelevant attributes to differentiate products is like adding colorful feathers to a hat. They may not shield you better from the sun or rain, but their unique flair can make the hat more desirable and eye-catching in a crowd.
That is really good because it's really easy to get confused between meaningless differentiation and distinctive branding. Like I still, as we're going through this, I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's, I thought at first when you asked me the question, I was thinking about liquid death because that's just water, right? And it's so unique because it's called liquid death. But I'm like, well, that's not really, there's not an added ingredient to the water. So that's just more distinctive assets. So it's easy for me to still kind of wrestle with that a little bit.
That's a good point because I thought of Liquid Death as an example too, that they're a brand that, don't you think they would fall under meaningless differentiation a little bit?
Well, I guess, again, it goes back to the difference between that and then distinctive brand assets, because I think it's very distinctive in terms of it's very counter category, but what is it that's actually added to it that's meaningless?
Oh, right. I suppose they're not saying something really about the water.
They don't have any, they're not saying more death per, ounce.
Yeah, they talk about like natural spring water, but they don't. You're right. They're not making some sort of a claim about something about the water or how the can does something with the water. It's more just great branding and marketing. So that you're right. There's a good distinctiveness there. And that's probably where this ethical debate and like the long-term sustainability comes in. Have you created a brand and a unique logo and unique story and unique colors? That's just great marketing. Or are you promoting a feature of your product that's not actually delivering any true value?
Right.
So I think that's the difference. And according to these researchers, it can still work. But I would think in the long term, you're going to have a tough time compared to competitors. If the example they give is instant coffee, like they talk about adding like special flakes to your coffee, but it doesn't actually do anything. So eventually, I don't know. This is more of a short-term study, like running the experiment. It'd be interesting to compare brands over the long term and see, does it catch up with you? Is it still powerful enough to make you stand out, that it's worth it? Or does churn change? It also makes me think of category creation, which we talked about on the show before, like how powerful it is to not just be one of many or saying, oh, I'm a better this, better that. I know it's a little bit different, but being in a category of one, having something different about your product, not sounding just like everybody else. And I think that applies across all of your marketing, not just on like features and value. That's going to be important. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Klaphaki for producing the show and Taylor De Los Reyes for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find the show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our weekly email newsletter. It's built for marketers seeking research-first analysis of the latest trends. You can go to marketingarchitects.com/newsletter to subscribe. Now go forth and build great marketing.
The Alka-Seltzer thing could probably get cut out. That didn't make sense. At first, it made sense in my head until I spoke it into the world.
I felt like I understood it. And then, to be honest, you started talking and I felt like I didn't get it anymore.
Marketing Architects.